couple interesting things to talk about.
We do.
The first thing is you and I were in India together, were we not?
We were. It feels like a dream, doesn't
I
it?
know.
Just a few months back.
It was a little bit ago. I'm curious, has the experience of spending a couple days with Arthur Brooks and that interesting group of people, convening with the Dalai Lama, has it stuck with you? What are the lessons that you find yourself ruminating on in the wake of that experience?
Well, it's interesting when people ask me about those sessions with the Dalai Lama, and they ask, what did you take away? Do you feel like wiser? Did you have some kind of profound experience? And truthfully, I did not. I was incredibly moved by the experience and by the trip, however. Being around hundreds of Tibetan monks that since childhood have been practicing being in the present moment, finding joy, being of service, studying what makes human beings was jaw-dropping. I had so many wonderful conversations with the monks. His Holiness was incredible. Every conversation that Arthur Brooks and the team of monks that were there had was him turning it toward that most important of all topics, which was love. I mean, Arthur Brooks could ask him about AI and the Dalai Lama would start talking about love. And that really taught me something, that those are always the most important conversations.
Yeah, it's a situation in which you go in and think you're going to get this key that's going to unlock everything. You're going to go behind the velvet rope.
Yeah.
Only to find out that it's the same thing you already kind of knew,
Right.
but also, an experience in which it just reaffirms that truth, right?
Yeah.
Basically, no matter what Arthur threw at him, the answer was the same. And it wasn't necessarily a direct response to whatever Arthur was asking. It was kind of it was like he was reading the room and trying to figure out what do these people actually need to hear?
Yeah.
And his answer was always some different version of the same response, which pivoted around love, compassion, forgiveness, like these, age-old concepts that we all know are the answer. But it was good to kind of have it reaffirmed in that way.
Yeah, it was essentially love better, love deeper, love truer, and all that goes with it. And so that was inspiring. I got to interview one of the monks. I'm blanking on his name right now. We're going to put his interview on our Soul Boom YouTube page. But basically, the bottom line was I asked him a question. Okay, pretend you're like the wisest Tibetan monk and you've been living in a cave for 40 years. And I'm the guy from like the New Yorker cartoon clambering up the side of the mountain. And I pull myself up to your cave and you're cross-legged. And I'm like, what is the meaning of life? I was like, what is the meaning of life? And you know what? He had an answer.
Are you gonna keep that quiet until the episode
So
drops?
long, everybody. I'm going to share it with
cliffhanger.
I'm going to share it with you.
Master storyteller.
I'm going to share it with you right now and trust that your audience is going to go subscribe to Soul Boom on podcasts and on our YouTube
Well, that's
page.
the whole purpose of us having this conversation right now.
Okay, good. So do you promise, you guys, pinky swear?
Everybody's swearing. Pinkies up.
Okay, very good. It was, again, incredibly simple. He said, the meaning of life is service to others. That's it. He said, when you are of service to others, that will vanquish your own inadequacies, your anxieties, your depression. It brings you into the moment. And not only that, it makes the world a better place. And there's a lot of people that need a lot of service right now. So shifting humanity's entire focus from self-interest to other interest, instead of selfishness, other-ishness was his entire thesis of the meaning of life. And I thought that was, it's so true. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, ask the Buddha, ask Jesus, ask Oprah.
Yeah. That is a consistent strain in every spiritual tradition and also a core precept of recovery, right?
Yep.
service is the ultimate antidote to the self-obsession that keeps us stuck and drives so many of our neuroses and our anxiety and some of these, off-kilter mental health issues that we all kind of
It's kind of the answer to
entertain.
everything. So that's what I got to come away from the foothills of Tibet with. And my wife and I got to go to a bunch of holy sites in northern India, which was amazing. The Golden Temple in Amritsar. We went to Rishikesh, which is a Hindu holy site where the Beatles stayed
Yeah,
and studied.
where the Maharishi
The
was.
Maharishi was. Yeah, but there's beautiful fire ceremonies, and it was really it was incredibly uplifting. And I was doing it right as we were launching Soul Boom,
Mhm.
so that helped as well.
So let's talk about Soul Boom. You've got this relatively new podcast. What inspired you to get back into the podcasting game? Because this is not your first spin of the podcast
Not my
wheel.
first podcast
Yeah.
rodeo. Yeah, Reza Aslan and I came on your show several years back, 4 or 5 years ago, when we were doing one called Metaphysical Milkshake. I've always loved big ideas, big human ideas. That's why I love your work. I love what your network is doing at Voicing Change and what you're doing. Um, and I wrote a book about a year and a half ago called Soul Boom: Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. We spoke about it on here. And I really feel that one of the ways I can be of service is to have conversations about deep, real, impactful, spiritual issues, and using spiritual tools for personal transformation and spiritual tools for social transformation.
Mm.
It's my passion. I've gotten to speak to stand-up comics. I've gotten to speak to humanitarians, theologians, musicians, um, different facets of the same conversation. Because spirituality it isn't woo-woo and it isn't church. It's just being a human being.
You said on this podcast, spirituality is reality.
Yeah.
And I think about that almost every single day.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. I do. And I think what you're creating is a really beautiful offering and much needed right now. I'm really honored to be able to be supporting you in this adventure. And I've also um, noticed the level of not just professionalism, but integrity and intentionality that you've brought to this with yourself and Kartik, your producer. You're really attacking it with vigor. Like this is not a side hustle. Like this is like a mission for you.
Yeah. It's incredibly important to me. And, was it Dionne Warwick? What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Yeah.
Dionne Warwick and the Dalai Lama have said it here, folks. But I love having these conversations. It feeds my soul, and I think we're in an election cycle, obviously, and it's one of the most kind of toxic, destructive times we've ever gone through. And these are the conversations that give us hope, purpose, meaning, direction, all that good,
Mhm.
gooey stuff, plus a few laughs along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Your show, as you're always pointing out to me, is much funnier than mine.
Yes,
It
it is.
is. But you have these
You
deep
take
thinkers.
yourself so damn seriously, Rich. Oh my
I know.
God.
I know. Um, you've got these deep thinkers. You've got, Douglas Rushkoff and, Kate Bowler and all these interesting people. But you just had Bryan Cranston on.
Yep.
Sarge Tarkanian.
Serge Tankian.
Serge. I always get his name wrong.
Yeah. System of a Down.
Yeah. Super cool, eclectic
Yeah.
group of guests. And it's been fun to kind of part-time like work in an office with you. Like I'm
Right.
sharing an office with Rainn Wilson. That has its own inherent, like there's some kind of weird joke built into that at some
You've
point.
kind of got the Michael Scott
Yeah.
office. Like I come in the building and you're in your office behind the computer and I'm coming in and
Or I'll be out of town and you'll text me a photo of you sitting in my chair at my desk.
yes, using your
And I'm
coffee
saying,
mug.
am I being fired? Anyway, we are doing this because I very much want to introduce Soul Boom to all of you guys. I'm speaking to you, the listener, and the viewer. And so we are going to share an episode of Soul Boom on this feed to kind of introduce you to Rainn's work. Which episode are we going to be putting up here?
We're going to put up a conversation that I had with the great writer, mystic, humorist, philosopher, creative artist, Anne Lamott.
She's
Annie
the
Lamott.
best.
She is the
I
best.
love her.
Hysterical, brilliant. Her recovery program is deep. Her creativity. She writes novels and books that are like Bird by Bird is a classic. One of my favorite books she ever wrote is called Help, Thanks, Wow, which are 3 different forms of prayer that one can say, help me, thanks, or wow. Isn't the
Mm.
universe astounding and beautiful? Um, she's she's an icon, and I thought your audience would really respond well to her stuff. And she's also funny as hell.
Yeah, I love her to death. There are plenty of her books that I have yet to read, but Bird by Bird sits up near the top
Mm,
of my favorite books, particularly in the genre of like unlocking your creativity.
yeah,
Her way with words, and I also listen to it on audio, and she narrates it, and her voice is so distinctive, and
very
the way that
distinct.
she reads her own material is
Yeah,
really wonderful.
yeah.
She's up there with Julia Cameron and
Mhm,
Stephen Pressfield and all the other like icons
mhm, mhm.
of creative expression, I think.
Yeah, yeah.